You may have noticed that we have several that are out for various reasons, including, I think, church camp and all kinds of other things. We're glad that you're here, and we'll look forward to next week and the week after having even more folks back with us. We're talking about marriage. This is the first in a series of 4 lessons that we'll have talking about marriage and relationships and those kinds of things. I want to start this morning by just saying you might have heard the story about this came out of Florida. I'll read it for you. Florida woman stops alligator attack using a small .22 caliber Ruger pistol. It's a story of self-control and marksmanship by a brave, cool-headed woman with a small pistol against a fierce predator. Here's the story in her own words. While walking along the edge of a pond just outside my house in the Villages, discussing a property settlement with my soon-to-be ex-husband and other divorce issues, we were surprised by a huge 12-foot alligator which suddenly lunged from the murky water. It began charging us with its jaws wide open. If I had not had my little Ruger 22 with me, I would not be here today. Just one shot to my estranged husband's kneecap was all it took. The gator got him easily, and I was able to escape by just walking away at a brisk pace. Florida, right? I mean, you know. In their book, Fighting for Your Marriage, Howard Markman, Scott Stanley, and Susan Blumberg, this is a book that is the basis for a lot of premarital counseling curriculums and things like that, but very well esteemed marriage experts. They describe the typical path that might take place in a relationship that is leading apart instead of together. The process of walking away or of drifting apart. They lay out for the readers of their book, and I'll reference them throughout the lesson here as well. But they lay out the path that a typical failing marriage takes. And it's not a path that involves some kind of egregious moral failure. It's not a path that has to do with, some kind of tragedy or debilitating circumstance or something like that. It's just a story that is told of a couple that walk close together and then walk beyond each other. I want you to listen to their description carefully for 2 reasons. The first reason is because the story that they tell might be a story that sounds all too familiar to you in your own relationship. That is a possibility. And if that is the case, then you and your spouse are in a crucial moment in your relationship. Today, perhaps, might mark a crucial opportunity in your relationship. The second reason I want you to hear this is because it might provide you a picture of where you don't want to go in your relationship, where you don't want to drift, and might encourage you to strengthen your relationship. Here's the story that they tell. You meet. Okay, that was obvious, right? But in our time, perhaps virtually you meet. But you meet. You are attracted to one another and start to spend time together. You like this person, and it's mutual. Joy, thrill, sparks, warmth, heat. You become a bit anxious about whether or not this person will stay in your life. You start to make commitments to one another because commitment reduces anxiety about staying attached. Commitment secures the attachment. You get engaged, then you get married. Problems come up. They just do. They will happen to you. Some of the problems are based on things that happen to the two of you in life. Some of the problems are based on differences in how you want or expect to handle things in life or what you believe is important. For some couples, they are easy problems. For others, they're very difficult, even gut-wrenching, such as having a seriously ill child. Like many, they're careful to say, but not all couples, you have difficulty managing conflicts and problems as they come your way in life. You don't work as a team on the problems you have, and conflicts become more frequent and more intense. The number of times you are together that end up with conflict or disconnection keep going steadily up. You don't communicate well together, and you start to get nastier about it all. Danger ahead. As you get busier in life, you begin to spend less and less time together doing things that are fun or relaxing. You have a home to take care of, probably kids that need time and attention. Your work begins eating up more time, and money pressures mount. Your positive connection suffers. You begin to neglect the parts of your life that bonded you together. You spend less time together having fun. You go out infrequently. You don't just sit down together or take walks to talk as friends much anymore. And when you do, it often turns into an argument. This is the big turning point. One or both partners begin to associate the presence of the other with pain and stress rather than with support or pleasure. Friendship together becomes a distant memory if it is remembered at all. Security in the future becomes something to threaten in arguments. Why should I stay with you? Maybe we need to get a divorce. Now you experience the total erosion of dedication to one another and investment in the relationship. You're forgetting why you went on this journey in the first place. In the absence of forces that constrain some couples to stay together, for example, poor alternatives, financial reasons, whatever the case, social pressures. In the absence of those forces, you divorce, or if you do stay together, you drift into painful distance. Now, that is not a particularly enjoyable story to tell, but it's a story that we see play out in the lives of couples. These marriage experts see this story play out in the lives of couples all the time. And it's a story that I'm well aware some of you have already experienced. And let me just say a quick aside there to say that the gospel is for the divorced as well as for the married. There is hope and healing and peace that can be found in Christ. And many of you already have experienced that as well. And for that, I am grateful. At the same time, those of you that have been down that road already know just how painful a road it was, and therefore know how important it is for those who are currently married to prioritize their relationship with their spouse. While it is true that marriage can be difficult, and many couples drift apart as the years go by, it is also true that God designed marriage to be great. That God designed marriage to be a blessing of joy and peace and belonging. That while there are many stories that you might hear of this very thing unfolding, there are wonderful stories, many examples even in this room of people who have found in their spouse a partner for life and have not only stayed together but have continued to grow closer together throughout their life. Not only do we want to see you stay married, we want you to stay happily married, right? We want to see you not just avoid drifting apart through divorce or drifting apart through becoming a roommate because there's social pressures or some other reason why you don't want to divorce or can't divorce, but you just say, okay, you live on that side, I'll live on this side. We don't want to just see you stay together. We want to see your relationship thriving and growing and deepening. Why might that be? It's not just because it will make it's for your happiness, right? Your joy, that's certainly part of it. But there's an even greater reason for that. Because God, according to Paul, chose marriage as one of the most prominent ways that he was going to picture the gospel to the world. He quotes from Genesis, "Therefore a man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh." This mystery is profound. And I am saying that it refers to Christ and the church, that in marriage, God is picturing to the world what it looks like when human beings relate to one another with commitment and companionship and forgiveness and trust and joy and so many other things. In other words, marriage is not only a relational experience, but it is a deeply spiritual experience. And a healthy marriage not only brings joy to spouses, but it glorifies God by showing to the world, modeling to the world, the very gospel of Jesus: sacrifice, commitment, forgiveness, and joy. Now, in our time today, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the 4 danger signs that might be present in a person's relationship. And we're also in this series going to consider the marks, some of the marks of a healthy, growing relationship, and how we can take those steps to further our commitment and our joy together as husband and wife. But when we think about these danger signs for a relationship, this morning I'm drawing on the research from the book I referenced earlier, Fighting for Your Marriage. They list these. Now, the book is not a particularly religious book, although it's been adapted to Christian curriculum as well. But I'll show you that these things are not, original to them. God has been instructing us about how to relate to one another for a very long time. But in order to have a vibrant relationship, we're going to need to consider some of the danger signs that prevent us from moving in, or danger patterns that prevent us from moving in the right direction. I'm going to say something about each of them on different slide. I just wanted to put it there for you to see if you wanted to kind of take down the big picture in terms of your notes. The first danger sign that couples need to be aware of, this is a danger sign that we see in Scripture repeatedly, but it's the idea of escalation. They define escalation like this: when spouses respond back and forth negatively to each other and continually up the ante so that conditions get worse and worse. Let me just kind of paint the picture of what this might look like in a relationship. Is it really that hard to remember to take the trash out? You forgot again. Well, maybe I'd remember if you didn't constantly give me a list of things to do. You think you have a list of things? You should see my list. Honestly, it's like you're a child. There we go again, always acting superior to me. When will it ever end? Maybe it should end. We finally agree on something. You see how in that interchange, things go from the trash wasn't taken out to maybe this marriage isn't going to work in a matter of about 5 sentences. When we think about escalation, we can understand that sometimes even the best couples slip into a mild version of escalation at times. We don't always handle communication well as human beings. We understand that. But the relationship is in severe danger if this becomes the pattern of communication when couples are talking with one another, especially so when it reaches the point of deploying leaving as a threat in the conversation, when leaving the relationship is the weapon that is used in speech. Proverbs 15:1 says, "A soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger." And couples that escalate their conflicts are constantly pouring gasoline onto a fire, waiting to get the last word in and really to make the last sting in the conversation. And what ends up happening is, like James says in James chapter 3, the tongue destroys the world around it because it's like a flamethrower. Setting not just a match, but a torch to the kindling that is around. A soft answer turns away wrath. Couples have an opportunity, we'll say more about a lot of this stuff, but couples have an opportunity to consider using their speech to soften the situation, to turn away from wrath and rage, but instead, if they're escalating, they're using their words to stir up more anger. The second, by the way, the point here is just for you to consider in your relationship. It's not the case that you're going to say, well, I'm a 4 for 4 on all these things and therefore I'm in trouble. It might be the case, but it's probably not. It's probably that you in your relationship, on each of these danger signs, there's something to work on, even if you have a very healthy relationship, right? There's a way for improvement. There's something to keep in mind. So keep that in the back of your mind as we go. Number 2, invalidation. Couples that are seeing danger signs, notice that there's a pattern in which one partner subtly or directly puts down the thoughts, feelings, or character of the other. Now, there are 1,001 different ways that this might surface in a relationship. At the bottom of all of them is the realization from the other partner, you don't understand me. You don't value me. Sometimes it's really spiteful and direct, like, name calling and things like that. It can take very subtle and indirect ways as well, or manifestations. For example, one spouse might be worried about, let's say, a performance review or an upcoming doctor's appointment. You can pick whatever the thing might be. And the other might say, it's just an annual thing. There's nothing to be worried about. Why are you always worried about everything? And the person's saying, you don't understand how I feel. When this is the pattern, again, we understand we're fallen with our communication. This happens sometimes in the very best relationship. But when this becomes a pattern, when one partner or both partners are constantly negating the feelings, thoughts, or maligning the character of the other, the relationship is in trouble. Let no corrupting talk come out of your mouths, says Paul, but only such as is good for building up, as fits the occasion, that it may give grace to those who hear. Sometimes we think about this verse in terms of, well, don't say that particular word. Okay, I understand that, but that's really not the focus of what Paul's saying here. He's providing a comprehensive look at how we use our words, and he's saying, are you choosing the words to speak that build someone up or tear them down? Invalidating speech is speech that destroys, doesn't build up. Number 3, we have a pattern of withdrawal and or avoidance. These are basically the same thing. That's why they put them on the same line there. Rather than working through challenges, what we have is a pattern in which a spouse seeks to avoid and or escape difficult conversations. That's the idea of withdrawing and avoiding. A spouse might know a hard conversation needs to happen and doesn't want it to happen, and therefore they avoid the conversation. There's too many things to do. There's too much pressure on this right now. The kids need this done. Whatever the case might be, there's always a reason why the conversation shouldn't happen. Or the conversation might begin and one or both parties just shuts down. Sometimes they'll even say that, yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, let's do that. But they don't really mean it. They're just trying to get out of the conversation. And that's what Stanley and the others are getting at when they're thinking about this idea of withdrawing and avoiding. Ephesians 4 again. Therefore, having put away falsehood, let each one of you speak the truth with his neighbor, for we are members of one another. Be angry and do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger, and give no opportunity to the devil. If it is true that we ought to speak the truth and we ought not put conflict, ought not prolong conflict or push it down the road with our neighbor, how much more true would that be with our spouses? And so there's a call to consider whether or not we are delaying conflict. You know that I'm a big fan of the quote, I don't know who said it first, conflict delayed is conflict multiplied. Conflict delayed is conflict multiplied. And withdrawing and avoiding is bottling something up, and it's eventually going to lead to an explosion. Here's the 4th thing, negative interpretations. If you want another name for this, you could call it mind reading. Negative interpretations. This is when one partner consistently believes that the motives of the other are more negative than is really the case. By the way, all 4 of these things are really good to keep in mind in relationships in general, not just in friendships, not just in marriage relationships. One of the best things couples can do to improve their relationship is to give up all attempts to mind read. Specifically, they stop assigning the worst motives to their spouse. This is true of relationships beyond marriage, as I said. I can't tell you how many times in the course of life and ministry where I have individuals come tell me, so-and-so said this, and I just knew he was thinking. Okay, wait a second. How did you know that? Did he say that? No, he didn't say that. How did you know she meant that by doing this? Well, I just know. When we assign negative motivations to people's actions, we might be right every now and then, but we're also going to be wrong a lot of the time, and we're going to be extremely bitter rather than having a relationship of love. Here's what Paul says in 1 Corinthians 13:7. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. If you have given your mind over to constantly negatively interpreting the motives of your spouse, you're destroying the trust that you have in your relationship. You can't trust if you are really having a relationship with a caricature that you have built in your own mind and imagination. And so that's the fourth of the danger signs that a couple might want to be aware of. So as we look at those different things, I say those things not because I want to discourage you, not at all, but because I just want to give you some things to kind of, and myself included, we need some things to look at our relationship and to say, okay, where are my areas for improvement as a spouse? What are my opportunities for growth? And sometimes we need some things that help us diagnose, and that's what the PrEP model, the Fighting for Your Marriage book, is all about. It's what the Bible's all about in terms of how it focuses on relationships. And the Proverbs are filled with diagnostic proverbs, right? To consider how we use our speech and how we use our time and priorities and all of that. Here's the big decision. This is the big decision that I think the researchers would suggest. This is their terminology because I think it's good, catchy, memorable. But this is also the big decision that God would ask you to make in your relationship this morning. And it's going to be the basis, in a way, of our next 3 lessons, which are going to focus on commitment, companionship, and forgiveness. The big decision that you have an opportunity to make in your relationship today is right here. Decide, don't slide. You have an opportunity right now, today, to choose to decide. Choose to prioritize your relationship, to decide what matters to you, to decide where you're going to pursue one another and how committed you are to your relationship. Or you can slide. You can just drift along in your relationship and suddenly look back and see, I don't know where it happened, but we're not even close to each other anymore. And if that's where you are today, there's good news. No matter how far apart you have drifted from your spouse, there's an opportunity today together to decide that today is a turning point in your relationship. You don't have to have all of the answers. You don't have to have all of the, okay, we're going to do this and do that and do this. This is simply the decision that you make to say, this relationship matters to me, and this relationship matters to God, and we're going to act like it matters. We're going to see that our relationship not only can bring great joy because of what Jesus can do, but it can model for the world what it looks like to receive and give love, and to find peace and joy and forgiveness. Here's what Proverbs 14:8 says. The wisdom of the prudent is to give thought to their ways, but the folly of fools is deception. The wisdom of the prudent is to decide. The folly of fools is to slide through life, just to drift through life and let life happen to you. Decide today to be humble enough to recognize that your relationship, no matter how great it was when it began, no matter how great it is right this moment, be humble enough to realize that it is not immune to the decay of time without attention. Decide today to listen to Paul's words in Ephesians 5. Look carefully then how you walk, not as unwise, but as wise, making the best use of the time because the days are evil. Don't be foolish, but understand what the will of the Lord is. The Lord has a will for your relationship. The Lord has a will for your marriage. And it's a will that includes your happiness, but it's a will that goes so much beyond it. A will to display the glorious riches of His grace for the world by modeling a grace-filled relationship in your home. Decide to join God in His purpose for your relationship and decide not to drift into separation. Today is the day to decide and not slide. If you're here this morning and you would like to decide not only in your relationship with your spouse, but maybe you're here today and you're ready to make a decision for Jesus. You're understanding what the will of the Lord is for your relationships, but you're realizing that's secondary to the will of the Lord for my life, that I would follow Jesus. And if you want to make that decision today to follow Jesus, we'd love to see you. We'd love to see you confess Him as Lord, be immersed into Christ. And if you're here and you're married and you need help in your relationship, certainly we're happy to pray for you, but we're also happy to have a conversation with you. Also, I'd remind you that we have a partnership with the Pastoral Institute. I think there's some flyers out there in the front also. Pastoral Institute is Christian-based counseling in Columbus. They've got a whole slew of counselors on staff, and if you have one that, you can change counselors there if you want to or whatever. It's like $20, $25 for you to go to each session that you go to. There's a very minimal, I think it would cost you like $175 to go, but the church is partnered with them to provide that as a resource. All you do is you schedule an appointment and you say that you're with the Rose Hill Church of Christ, and they'll charge you $20 or $25. And we don't say, well, are you on the membership roll? If you tell them, they're going to believe you, and we're happy to see you do that, no matter if you're visiting with us or not. But just want you to be aware of that opportunity. Whatever needs you have, you're welcome to come as we stand and sing.